We are around 1.5 hours into the opening of the New York session today, August 7th, 2025. So if we take a look at the higher time frame on the 1 hour, we have been bullish from this point on, having the start of a bullish cycle here with the validation of this accumulation MB into this MMB1, um, which happened yesterday. Um, and then actually during the overnight session, we had the validation of this MMB1 into a further bullish move. And from there, we had some sort of pause right here before the start of the New York session. So in general, our expectancy is to see bullishness still coming in into the market. And in terms of what happened right at market open, we had on our context time frame, basically out of this point here, also a bullish cycle was created through this accumulation MB, through this MMB that went into an MMB2. And this flush actually went from this high and it moved towards the 20 and stayed there right before the session opened. It never invalidated at this point. So if we come here closer to the start of the session, right here, at this point, we can see that we were below the EMAs here on our context time frame. So we had to basically see if this was gonna sustain the bullish move or if it was gonna fail. And from there, as market opened, we had this move here. So some sort of distribution that failed, another move to the upside, once again below the EMAs. And from this point here, what we had was the buildup of bullish cycle on the validation with this accumulation MB into this MMB1, which at this point price was above the EMAs here on the context time frame, was flushing, so giving us the flush of an MMB1 from this high to the 20s on rising EMAs on the validation, with our expectancy again inside a bullish market to basically run this high here on the validation on the context time frame. So if we take a look at the entry time frame, this is the flush that I am talking about. So here we had a flush from this high on the validation up to the 20 EMA. So we can draw this double MB through MMB1 and MMB2, and this actually presented an opportunity for a long position here that is fully valid, with an entry point right above the containment line here and above rising EMAs that are here turning from going downwards to facing upwards. So if we take this risk here, placing the stop loss below the EMAs and below MMB2, this would have been basically a trade that almost immediately went into full TP with a 3-to-1 risk to reward. So this was at this point, basically half an hour after market open. So price came here and made the move, actually validated MMB2 on the context time frame here with this candle closing above this high. So we went up to this point. At that time, this would have been, or maybe we have been considering this high as a possible MMB2. So let's take a look at this one here. We should, at that time, we should have labeled this one as MMB2. And from there, we can draw a containment line from here, or maybe I would say at that time, this would have be our containment line with an aggressive move to the downside into the 20 MA. But due to the nature of this containment line and all EMAs were basically pointing downwards, there was no entry around this area. And if we adjust the containment line, considering these points here, the only available point for entry was maybe around here, considering this as MMB1 and this here as an MMB2. But yeah, I would say due to how price moved here on MMB2 with price just falling down below the EMAs, rising, falling again, probably this would not have been a buy stop that I would have considered. So there was no good setup there. And from there, price basically once again came here into the 20s. So from this point, if we draw a containment line, maybe this one here, from this point here could have been one. At this time we closed below the EMAs, but immediately came above. So maybe here there was an entry through this high. So we just consider this entry. In this case, this one it's kind of hard to confirm, but maybe this one could have been a break even if we considered this retracement and then this candle creating a new high above, creating a new closing above this high here. So if we consider this retracement and then a move above this high, certainly this would have enabled us to close at break even here. Otherwise, if we didn't, then trade would have continued directly to a loss. So that's the other one that presented at that time. After that, we saw basically a complete failure here on the validation time frame. Price just moved to the downside. So if we also take a look here, from this point here, on this failure, price came not just under the EMAs on the validation, but also on the context time frame. So here we are basically under the EMAs. So from that point, there was basically no chance for us to follow on any entries. And basically price has kept on going downwards. If we take a look at our C2 time frame, it makes sense as we are building here MMB2 on the 1 hour, which is flushing and has been flushing throughout the start of the session. into the 20 EMA, which is what we are seeing right now as live price. So at this point, we should wait to see if there's going to be some reaction out of the 20 EMA on the C2 time frame. So we should wait to see a pause, a stage 1 building here on our context time frame, and we have to wait for a validation of an accumulation MB on the context time frame, price going and staying above rising EMAs before we can go into our validation time frame to look for an entry. This is basically what we have to do at this point. If price continues to the downside here, closing below the EMAs on the C2, then there's a probable chance that this is gonna continue as a bearish move, and we can then start looking for sells. But this is something that we have to wait to see how price gonna react out of the 20 EMA here on the C2 time frame. So we're gonna at this time just wait to see how this is gonna develop for the rest of the session. At this time we are 3 hours into the session, and actually from the time we left we were waiting for a flush here on the C2 time frame and see if there was going to be some sort of bounce or reaction out of the 20 EMA. That's basically what we can see here throughout this flush. Pretty weaky, as we can see here, so hard to even trade to the downside. But actually we were interested, as our bias is basically bullish still at this time, due to the fact that we have been on this, or we have been riding this bullish cycle on the 1 hour time frame. We were just waiting to see if there was going to be some sort of reaction around this area here where we at right now, and if there was going to be some sort of stage 1 building on the C time frame. And we are basically still at this time waiting to see what price is gonna do. So this is this is still waiting, probably a longer waiting session time today, as we have to see if this MMB2 on the C2 time frame is gonna fail, or if we're gonna get some sort of reaction. At this time we're still waiting to see some sort of reaction out of this, to see price go above some sort of accumulation here, and after that, as soon as price goes above rising MAs, then we can start looking for possible new bullish cycles on the validation that could lead to entries on our 5-second time frame. So at this point, this is still waiting time. So we have to stay on the sidelines at this point, and we'll give some more time to see if we will gonna start building some sort of stage 1 here, or otherwise we have to see and try to get a new scenario based on a bullish move here out of this C2 time frame, which is kind of currently occurring. We have seen a very strong bearish move since the session started. We had price coming in here to this high, and from there, basically after 30 minutes into the session, we saw price basically melting, just like we are experiencing at this moment. So we're gonna wait a little bit longer to see how this continues throughout this this Thursday session. So at this point, we're following this move here with this flush of MMB1. These are flip charts at this point. As we saw in this case, price continuing the bearish momentum move and basically placing price right now above what seem to be rising MAs. So I was looking at this here for a possible sell. However, as we can see, price closed at this point around here, close with that candle on the validation below the EMAs. So I was expecting a reaction from there, a quick reaction to the downside. However, this buy stop here, or in this case a sell stop, never got validated. This is kind of the here, or no, just let me put this here. So here, this is kind of the kind of the containment line I was looking at, and a possible buy stop through this area to place price once again above EMAs on the validation. However, that wasn't the case, and price just kept on going to the upside through this bullish move, and now it's basically below the EMAs. So nothing for me to consider there. So I'm about to close the session for today. It's gonna be a quick video today, as there were not true opportunities here. The market has been shown to be very wiki price action all over the place. So it's hard to follow, and well, there's no reason why to put risk on the table throughout such conditions. Just to take a quick look on this specific move, we already talked about the only one opportunity that we had to the upside, which was around, if I remember correctly, around 30 minutes after the start of the session. So probably around this area here. Just let's take a quick look there. Yeah, around here. So this was the only place where we had this opportunity. Basically after market opened, after this move on the validation time frame, this flush, we had this is the same that we saw earlier, but just to make a quick recap, we had distribution here into MMB1. At this time, price was reclaiming the EMAs on the C time frame, and based on our bullish expectancy on its way to validate MMB2 on the context time frame. So that's the reason why we decided to take risk on this one, or we would have decided to take risk on this one. We had this flush from this high up to the 20, and from there, basically what we had where is it? here. Just have to flip this. This is the place where that trade took place. There was a clean flush here from the high on the validation up to the 20, and a buildup of a double MB here with a buy stop above the containment line and above rising EMAs, and that one led basically immediately or almost immediately to full TP. So that was the only trade available for us, or the one true opportunity. Then we had this flush. At that time we were considering this one MMB2. So this was a long-term flush here up into the 20, and out of this one, even though we had a candle close below, there was an immediate reaction for price to go to the upside to reclaim the EMAs, and there was this entry here out of this double MB. I'm just gonna place the boxes as we used to use them. So this one would have been another possibility to get in, to get positioned, and this one would have tapped us in, and at this point the trade could have been a break even. There was this a candle close above this high after this small retracement, so there was enough reason and support for us to break even. And if we, due to that this was just a small move and basically the trade had made at that point only around 0.9 R, we could have let that play out a bit more, and in that case we could, or we should have gotten into a full loss, as there was no chance here to break even after this, basically after coming back to break even. So it went directly to the stop loss, so there was no chance there. And after that basically price failed, melted. So what I'm gonna do is here at this point flip the charts to take a better look into the movements that happened as soon as this bearish move started. So this was, yeah, basically from that point on. So basically from this point on, the bearish move started, and we had basically the buildup of a distribution here, which was validated, but through a lot of weakness on the context time frame. And if we take a look at the validation, we're going to do that in a minute. Just take into consideration that any of this price action, at least around this area, this was basically a sidelines for us, because we were below the EMA on the C2 time frame. So there was not enough alignment for us to get in here. We were expecting a reaction from here, from the 20 EMA, for a continuation to the long side. But in this case, we went above the EMAs, kind of having a continuation of the bearish move. So just taking that into consideration, if we take a look at just the price action on this part of the bearish move, we can see that due to this weakness, there were basically no good setups along here. I would say basically around this area, when price had validated this distribution and be with this candle close above this high, we were kind of enabled to look for a possible entry. And in this case, after having this flush and this failure on the validation, then we had a distribution in B through this high here. So that was a valid distribution in B that got validated through this candle. Then we had MMB1 out of here. And just let's take a look at how that looked like on the entry time frame. We came here. No, this is this point MMB1. So we're around here. So we made this move. This was just to the 5, so there was nothing for us to take a look at. And then we had this flush here up to the 20 EMA. And from there, we had basically the buildup of this double MB, which certainly would have led to a valid entry that went up to the full TP and then reversed. But actually, this one gave a full TP profit. So just note that this trade was a good setup in terms of alignment of our EVC. But if we take into account C2, which is also a time frame that we use for confirmation, that's why we weren't even looking at this point, because price was below the EMAs. So this is just in order to take a look at how a good setup would have been presented in alignment with our validation and our confirmation time frame. But that's the reason why we didn't take it. And in addition, though, all of these weeks on the C made it difficult actually to have a good follow up here and a good setup. So most of the time, due to these weeks, it's probable that we would have been taken out. But well, this is the one that placed there. After that, there was failure once again on the validation time frame. From there, we had distribution into MMB1, you could say, into MMB2 that failed once again. So this is how it looks like. The price action on the validation, how it looks like when it is so weaky on the C time frame. And after that, we were around this area on the context time frame. I labeled this high here as MMB1, so it was basically the first time throughout all this move that we had 2 bullish candles in a row and a flush on the context into the 20. So this is basically around this area. And on the validation, I labeled this high here as a distribution MB, which was validated through this candle, and we had this impulsive move to the downside. So I labeled this one as MMB1 on the validation, started following this one for a possible entry out of this area, but this one completely failed on the validation. Came here to test the 20, the rising 20 on the context, and started building again one distribution out of there, out of here. So I labeled this high as a distribution, got validated here. Then we had this MMB1. So let's take a look at that one. Let's see where that was. This is 11. So this is around this area right here. So this was MMB1. Let's take a look. We had this flush here, or here you could argue, that came into the 20. Let's say the order of the EMAs, we had the 5 into, yeah, they were right, 5 into the 10 into the 20. So they were accommodating the right way. And then we had this MMB2 that was not validated, so no entry there. and then basically we came up to this point with a close below the EMAs. If we adjust this containment line just to give it a chance to see if there was gonna be a immediate bounce, that is what happened at this point. So we could consider this as MMB1. Then we had price go above the containment line, and there was a small pause around here. So there is a trade that could have been taken there, short around this area. So let's take a look at how that one would have looked like. We would have placed our stop below the EMA, so for around this sort of risk. And what happened there is that price tapped us in, went up to 0.59R, then came back into break even, into drawdown, into an over 50% drawdown, and then came back to break even. So this one would have been a break even based on our rules. And a lot of back and forth after that, but well, for us, based on our rules, this one would have been a break even. And after that, yeah, that was a lot of back and forth, and once again failure on the validation. And we're currently here after this failure, again the buildup of a distribution into an MMB1 here. So this is basically right at this point. So we came into the 5, once again up, and then from here into the 10. Maybe through this high, there could have been a buy stop, but probably once again a break-even trade. So just a quick demonstration of how throughout all the session there have been too much choppiness, too much wiki price action, which has made it very difficult, and that's mainly the reason why we haven't placed no trades throughout today's session. So at this point, I'm gonna stop the recording. It's gonna be about around a 30 minutes recording to show what was happening today on NQ at the New York session. So we are already 4 hours into the session, and at this point we're gonna just close the session for the day.